C flat 5, sus 9. A minor 7, sus 4, with a plunky note that I played in there. So what the heck am I talking about? Today's lesson is all about how you name chords, and welcome to Music with Marky. Today we're picking up where we left off after the lesson on where to play major and minor chords, and also on where to play the 7th chords. And we're going to be talking about all the other chords with the weird names and how you get to those names or figure out what you can play. And no, I'm not just going to be giving you an encyclopedia of chords here. Instead, I'm going to show you what to name a chord and how to build any chord you want in any key so you know what it is that you're playing and don't have to go through that encyclopedia. Now, first, before doing that, I do want to share a couple of links here with you that are really important. Number one, you need to know the basics of at least the major scale for this and the minor scale. So check out this series on the modes that I did in case you don't know that, or if you already did, you're fine. And number two, you need to know how each interval or harmony is named, how its name is derived, and it'll make understanding this lesson a whole lot easier. Okay, so now the first thing before we get into all the chords is you have to know whether you're going to be deriving the name from a major chord or a minor chord. That is the launching point for where you create the names and figure out what the complex additions are to the chord that you're naming. So you can think of it as kind of like when you're coming up with a name for kids. It's a boy name or a girl name, and yeah, I know that sounds totally old man of me because it's binary, but you know, I'm just trying to make this lesson easy, so cut me some slack here.
The next name is actually the name a lot of you guys think is my daughter's name.
So when you hear all these names, add this and sus that, and you're wondering what it means, well, the first thing you have to realize is that there are certain parts of chords that are inferred with the very basic name. When you just say major chord, it is inferred that you are including the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th. And I'm just going to build everything off of a G here, stick with G major. So again, if you know this from the lessons we did before about your scales and your harmonies, you know the 1st is a G, the major 3rd is a B, the 5th is a D, and every note in that chord, no matter how you play it, is just made up of G's, B's, and D's, 1s, 3s, and 5s. If it's a minor chord instead, everything's the same except for that 3rd becomes a minor 3rd, G's, B flats, and D's. The other thing that's inferred is in 7th chords you can say G major 7, G minor 7, or G dominant 7. That's that whole other lesson there, and I talk about what the notes are. The important thing is that there's an inference as to what's already included, so you don't have to say add or sus until you add things that are not one of those notes. So what's that about? Let's start with the G chord, and let's take one and we'll call it an add 9. Now notice I picked a number larger than 7, and there's only 7 notes in the scale. That is because I can be informing somebody that the note is more than an octave up. So if I play G major, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then it repeats that the octave is 8, 9. There's 9. It's the 2 an octave higher. You can subtract 7 from whatever large number you have to figure out what the interval is. So a G sus 9 or add 9, you can use either. Sounds like that. It's just the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th. So knowing what to call a chord is just about knowing what the name of the harmony is. And again, if I'm basing it on a major chord, I'm implying that I have all of the major notes of the major scale. So if I say a G major 7 add 6, I also know that it's a major 6th because I'm talking about a G major chord. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's an E. So I need a chord that's the G major 7, which you should know from before what we did. And I have to find a way to add an E to it. Well, here I can do it with the open string. I can play this, and that's the 6th added there. If it was a G minor add 6, it changes the entire thing to the minor scale. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it's an E flat, and I have the G minor chord. I have to figure out a way to get an E flat in there. So I have like a G, a B flat, just a basic triad there, made up of those notes. So when naming it, it's just a matter of which scale degree, same as the lesson on the harmonies, that you've added to the chord that is not part of the 1, 3, 5, and 7. You're talking about adding 2s, 4s, 6s onto the chord. Now this is a lot to absorb at once, and usually if I'm working in a private lesson kind of situation, we'll go over this over the course of a few weeks at least. And a lot of what I'll do is either name a chord, I'll say something like G sus 4 add 6. and I'll expect my student to figure out what it is and play it. Or I will play a chord and ask them to tell me what it is. And I'm going to do like one example like that for you now of a kind of drilling, questioning kind of thing. I'm going to play this chord here. And I would ask you as a student to figure out what chord did I just play. I've got the 1st fret on the 6th string, then I've got 5th fret, 5th fret, 5th fret again, then 3rd fret, and 3rd fret. Those notes are G, D, G, C, D, G. So with those notes, you should have figured out now that the G's and D's are all part of the basic name of the chord. The only thing odd there was the C, and therefore I have a G sus4. Now that 4 is an octave higher than the actual 4 of the scale, so I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It could also be called a G add 11 if you wanted to call it that. And so it's this kind of quizzing and figuring out what you can do that you have to add into your practice routines until you can figure out comfortably what the notes are. And I want to give you a different thing that you can look at here as kind of the last step of this. Now that you understand that we're naming chords anytime we're not playing something that's in the implied 1, 3, and 5, there's one little piece to understand here, and that is when you play notes that are not in the key. So I could have, say, a G major chord, and anytime I add any of the notes, the 2s and 4s and 6s, I just say 2, 4, 6, add 6, or sus4, whatever that is, like we were saying. But what happens if I want to play a flat 6 in a major chord? So I want to play something that's not in the key. Well, you just say add flat 6. So if I had the flat 6, it's a basic G major chord with G's and B's and an E flat as well. It's going to sound really weird. But these chords come up, especially in jazz type situations where you have off notes. You might play a chord like in a kind of hard rock setting, like where you go to, where I drop to the what's called the diminished fifth. Remember from the harmony lesson, the names are different. So if I'm playing a note that is not part of the key, I have to notate that it's either sharp or flat as to what it would normally be. And that's why you might see something like G major 7, add flat 6. That's just telling you specifically what to do with the note based on the harmony of major or minor. Now there's one more little nuance that I need to go over with you, and it's an important one that trips up a lot of students. So this nuance is about when you're playing other chords in the key. This entire example I gave here was in the key of G and with the root note, the G chord. What happens if I'm playing, say, a D in the key of G and I want to play a D sus4? Am I playing the 4th of G or am I playing the 4th of D? And the answer is that the interval is always associated with the root note of the chord. So if I'm in the key of G, I know from the lessons about how I do major and minor chords, 1s, 4s, and 5s are major. So I have a basic D major chord. And if I want to do a sus4, well, in the key of G, 4 notes up from D are 1, 2, 3, 4. It's that note G there. So I would be adding a G. There's a G over here as well, which could be called the 11. So I'm being careful to play the notes that are still in the key, so I'm not playing something that's going to make everybody else in the band sound awful. But I am naming the note based on the root note of the chord. That's an important differentiation there. If I do the same thing with, say, an E chord in the key of G. So E is a minor chord. It's the 6th degree of G. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's an E minor chord. Now I can play all the notes in the key of G major. Say I want to do an E minor 7, we'll go with the sus4 again. I would play 4 notes up from E, but still in the key of G. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice I'm using the fingering of the basic G major. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I now count that as 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know that my 4th is the note A. So I can take this E minor 7 and add this 4 here. E minor 7, sus4, add 11, however you want to call it. And this is how you can kind of form your own chords and grab anything around. Once you know the modes and you've gone through that lesson, you know that if you're in here, you're in that part of the mode, and you can start. I'm basically kind of playing lead while I hold the chord down, and I know the mode in the area that I'm playing with, and it makes it really easy to embellish and add cool chords, and now you know how to name them too. And so I've stuffed a lot of information into a lesson there over something that usually gets reviewed quite a bit, but hopefully this gives you a good central point to start from and an understanding of how chords are made and how you name them when you make goofy chords like that.
I don't know what I'm trying to sing.
And as always, if you have any questions or need some further guidance, please leave comments below. I'm always happy to get back to everybody as soon as I can. And until next time, keep making great music. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.